What's up, y'all? Shuffle, and today, instead of talking to new players, we're going to talk to you veteran players who have played the game, maybe beaten it a couple times, and we're going to talk about the top 5 mistakes that veteran players make in Darkest Dungeon. And before we get started, I stream on Twitch 4 days a week if you want to go check that out, as well as Discord and Patreon if you want to follow along or support all that and get some cool perks on top of what you're normally doing besides the videos. Alright, so starting off with the first mistake that new player, or not new players, I'm in like total new player mode, I apologize. But the first mistake veteran players make is they are afraid of overkilling units, where sometimes if a unit is, because I'm guilty of this too, where it's like the bleed is going to tick down, they have 8 HP, the bleed's doing 3 a tick, or 4, no, 5 I guess, I don't know, it's going to kill them in 2 turns. And instead of just finishing that unit off, you know, with your current turn and just making your life easier, and not letting the pelagic grouper, for instance, crit you for 22 if you have blight on top of it. Instead of finishing that off, you just let it tick down and then it gets an extra turn, and sometimes that turn can be heavily punishing. And the point I'm trying to make with this is that there is no such thing as overkill in Darkest Dungeon. Well, there is overkill, but overkill isn't something to be upset about, it's not something to be feared. Yeah, it does feel kind of bad sometimes when you crit something for like 37 when it has 10 HP, and it's like, okay, I wish I got that before, but you still should not worry about overkilling units, because taking away their turns at the end of the day is the most important thing to do. Another mistake veteran players make is they do not swap skills or trinkets when they're adventuring in this game. They think that if I have 4 moves, those are the 4 moves I'm using the entire dungeon. If they have general trinkets that are not class trinkets, they think, okay, well, I'm just going to leave these on for the entire time because these are the people that are supposed to be holding them. And it's a little min-maxy. I won't argue there, but it is something that helps out quite a bit. A good example is the Ancestors map. Another one's the Recovery Charm. So with Ancestors map, you get the scouting, but importantly, you get the trap disarm. And having the trap disarm being as high as it is on Ancestors map, this also works for Survival Guide if you're lower level. But since you get the extra 25 on top of that, that puts most heroes up into like 85, 90 trap disarm chance, even if they are not a rogue type. So if they're not Grave Robber or Highwayman, for instance, which have naturally higher trap disarm, you can put the map on anyone, and I think they, like, the minimum is 90% trap disarm. That is freaking good. So what you can do is you can move the map onto heroes that normally can't disarm traps that well, like Man-at-Arms or Vestal, and suddenly they get to disarm traps and they get to stress heal for 8. That's just stress healing that you can pass around. It's not just the scouting, it's the fact that when you move the map to other heroes, they can disarm traps and stress heal themselves. That's pretty awesome. The same goes for Recovery Charm. Recovery Charm is 40% bonus healing, or I should say healing received, if you're unfamiliar with it. And you can pass that around to your other units while you're adventuring, and if you're going to hit a Curio that can heal you, you can put it on them and they get bonus healing. If you're going to eat food, you can give it to them and they get bonus healing. If you're camping, you get bonus healing. So this is another good candidate of a trinket to move around between the party. So even though class trinkets are usually just stronger in terms of power level, on average, the ability to move around the neutral trinkets is incredibly helpful, and I don't think a lot of players do it enough. The other part of this point is they don't swap skills either. So there are times to swap your skills around. When you're adventuring, sometimes, like I point to this example with Thick, is he had a couple heroes in, I think it was a Warren's run or something like that, they were getting highly stressed out, and with his Flagellant, he just went into a battle and he took off, or he's about to go into a battle, and he swapped some moves and he put on Suffer and Endure, and he just sat there stress healing his units, and it worked out very well, because even though, I can't remember if they were afflicted or not, but that's besides the point. Just the fact that you can swap skills in between battles is very helpful on its own. This is a comment I've gotten a few times as well in my videos over the years, where I swap skills while I'm doing a mission or something like that, and people will comment, they go, wow, I played this game for 100 hours or 200 hours, and I didn't know you could swap skills in dungeons. That's pretty cool. So make sure that you're swapping your skills around as you need to. This is also why it's kind of important to level up skills, and heroes that may not seem as strong in certain regions because of resists or just their damage types, you can swap their moves around before you fight a boss, for instance, that you know you're going to run into, like you're going to kill a boss, that's the mission. You can swap your skills when you get to the boss, and that is something that is very cool, and it rewards game knowledge. So make sure you're swapping your trinkets and you're swapping your skills. One final note, actually, because I want to get this in here, but if you want a super, like, mega, omega, alpha type of min-max this, you can do things like taking off your bonus stress trinkets, like Blasphemous Vial, for instance. If you're about to walk through a hallway where you know there are no fights and you don't want to take, stress from the hallway, or like the extra 1 stress, you can take it off. A cultist who likes to stress everyone by using his cam skills, you can take off your trinkets that give bonus stress and make those more manageable. Alright, I'm done with this point. The third tip, veteran players will loot Curio in hallways that they're going to backtrack through eventually anyway. There are a couple reasons not to do this. The first reason is if you know you have to come back a certain way, like the dungeon splits into 2 obvious paths, and you have to go through both paths, like it's explore 90% rooms, for instance, there's no point to looting Curio on your way in unless it's like some kind of healing Curio and you need it right then. And the reason is, once you go through the hallway and you have to go back after you clear the rooms that you're supposed to, those Curio can either heal you if you didn't need them before, or if you had too much inventory space filled up, you may have used some inventory space, like you may have camped, or you may have used a consumable, and then all of a sudden these loot Curio you're able to pick up when you weren't able to pick them up before. The final part of this idea is Curio can block fights or hunger checks that appear in hallways. This is a bit harder to pull off in the Weald sometimes, because the Weald will occasionally have the 1 tile hallway, or sometimes it has the 8 tile hallway, which is obnoxious to say the least. But leaving Curio to block hunger checks and to block fights is something that's pretty cool and can actually be helpful, especially in like those shorter hallways. So the way it works is, if you go back through a hallway that you have to go back through, sometimes a fight or a trap or a hunger check can spawn. So if you go back through these hallways and you leave Curio up, you can block those tiles from spawning those things. Like I said, this is kind of min-maxy, but it does help out quite a bit, because sometimes you don't have enough food to make it through the dungeon, so being able to block a hunger check from spawning as you're moving back is really helpful. And the way hunger check works is that it needs an open tile. You can probably figure out that fights and traps need open tiles, but some people probably don't know that hunger checks can only happen on open tiles. The hunger checks are invisible to the player, but the hunger checks actually have an icon that can appear on tiles. They're little green, turkey or chicken drumsticks, and that symbolizes that there's a hunger check. So if you're leaving Curio on tiles they have to come back through, hunger checks can't spawn there. And that's just another way to prevent having to deal with them, and then you can stretch your food out just that much further. The fourth tip, thinking any hero is actually bad in this game. No hero is bad in this game. Even Antiquarian has some pretty strong combat prowess if you understand the class. In the new player video that I did a couple days ago at this point, I talked about being open-minded to using new classes and stuff, and I think players that understand the game start to get a bit closed-minded, and they think, okay, well, I don't need to run, for instance, I don't have to run Crusader as a healer or a stress healer, because Vestal's a better healer and Crusader's a better, or not Crusader, and then Jester's a better stress healer. And they just think, I never need Crusader for anything unless I want him to sit up front and get hit in the face. But then when you start thinking about it like that, there are things that Crusader can do that the others can't. Like Crusader can hit rank 4 with bruiser damage, which is 10 to 19, and that's pretty nice. Crusader can also heal from anywhere. Jester and Vestal cannot. So every hero, even if it seems like there's some overlap, each hero does bring something interesting and somewhat unique to the table, even if, like I said, there is some kind of kit overlap. So if you're thinking that I don't need to run X hero just because some other person does their job better, it's not a helpful mindset to have, because you're stopping yourself from figuring out new strategies and team combinations, and sometimes you don't have that option. Sometimes you don't find your second Vestal or your first Jester or something like that if you want to use those characters. I know veterans don't use them as often, but I'm still referring to them, So there are characters you may want, and sometimes you're starting a new file and you don't find them and you have to make do. So being able to understand and use characters to their fullest extent, even in like unconventional ways, is awesome, and it makes you a better player, I promise. The fifth mistake veteran players make is they get trapped in statistics, aka, I guess I should say, they focus on looking at numbers over gameplay and context. And I understand the appeal, because you can mathematically prove certain things are really good. For instance, with Grave Robber, people say, infinite lunge is a ton more damage than doing like double lunge or shadow fade and lunge or lunge and then shadow fade. And these are discussions I've had numerous times, but you have to look at the things that you trade off in these situations. Sometimes it's not just about the raw numbers output. Sometimes there's other context going on that is worth exploring because the gameplay is something to consider, and not all plans go according to plan. One of my favorite quotes, I forget who said it or where I heard it, it's been, several years at this point, but they said that no plan survives contact with the enemy. I probably could look this up right now, but you may think it's a cheesy quote, but honestly, stuff happens. Sometimes you get surprised at full torch, sometimes you get high rolled by some unit on speed and they just hit you with a fat stun. Like Ghoul can roll like an absolute god and go first, then skull toss your jester, and then your whole team just stalls out because you don't have turn 1 battle ballad. There are a lot of things to consider, so just saying that this is the best because the numbers are the best, I think does a disservice to the same thing we were talking about in the last tip, or not tip, but mistake that we were talking about, and that's that it kind of stunts growth. It stops people from thinking like, okay, this could be good. The numbers, for instance, like I was saying in the other example, where sure, Vestal can out-heal Crusader, but Crusader can heal from anywhere, same with Jester. And even though Jester is a very strong single target stress healer in battle, sometimes you don't need a single target stress healer. Sometimes you need Cry Havoc because that can heal the entire party. There are so many things in this game that even though the numbers aren't on their side, if you put them in the right situations, then they can be better than what the numbers would say they are. And I think if you're focusing too much on the numbers, you're not getting the entire picture. Another couple examples here is, the first one is people say, like I literally got this in a comment a couple days ago. Someone said, yeah, dodge is really bad in Torchless because the enemies get so much accuracy. And my response is that all defensive stats get worse in Torchless just because the stat load is so massive. And that's not even saying that dodge is actually bad. You have things like Mooncloak, which are, properly statted for Torchless. You get 15 dodge, and that cancels out the 12 accuracy that enemies get in Torchless. You have Flash Powder with Antiquarian, that helps the dodge strategy. You have so many other dodge trinkets out there that help quite a bit. So yeah, they can hit you 12% more often, or 12.5%, whatever it is, but that doesn't mean dodge is worthless. Like, if you could never ever dodge at all ever in Torchless, no one would use dodge, but people still use dodge in Torchless. It's fine. It works. Another example, I guess my final example, is that someone like Leper has kind of bad accuracy baseline, and people say Leper needs a ton of accuracy to hit anything, and because Leper misses, Leper's bad. And that's really not good to think about, because even though Leper needs some extra accuracy, he doesn't really need anything else, and he's just good to go. And you can cover his accuracy in 2 trinkets in most cases, or at least his camp skill as well. And people get into that same mindset where they think, okay, because the numbers are bad here, then I should never use this character. And I was that way for a long time too. Like, I didn't use Leper in my first Blood Moon clear because I thought, okay, this dude can only hit the front, he has low accuracy, why do I care? And when I did Torchless Blood Moon, Leper turned out to be one of my best units, and it didn't matter that he could get surprised and thrown into the back, it didn't matter that his accuracy was garbage. The fact that I could circumvent his accuracy and the surprise stuff with trinkets and proper play and stuff like that, then Leper really thrived because his HP, one of his better stats, was fantastic, and then he could still blow stuff up in a couple turns. So I will reiterate that getting caught up in the numbers can be helpful to figure stuff out, but just saying strictly because this number sucks and this number is better, we should never ever use the thing that is inferior. And that is just not correct. I don't think there's any defensible position of that, and it's just never a good thing to say. Alright, y'all, that's gonna do it for this one. Thanks for watching. Let me know what you're thinking down below. Let me know if you agree or disagree with these, or if there's something I missed. I know in the first mistakes video that I made, people were pointing out that my background footage had mistakes, like I wasn't stacking my stuff up, and that I wasn't looting with Antiquarian. I've had to explain multiple times that that is guide footage. That's a file that's got like 300 weeks and 2 million gold, so I really don't care about looting stuff and organizing my inventory. But anyway, if you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up, leave a comment, let everyone know what you're thinking, argue with me if you really want to. Join Discord if you want to argue with me further in, like, as close to in person as you can. And then check out all the social media stuff like Twitter, Twitch, and Patreon. So thank you so much for watching. I can't tell you what the next video is because I haven't written it yet, and I'll see you next time.